The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and the latest release, Tears of the Kingdom, are absolutely beautiful games. I mean, just look at this. These games are just so absolutely stunning. But these games obviously are not just beautiful, they are chocked full of content. Weapons, monsters, shrines, dungeons, items, all the food that you can make. But let me ask you this, when was the last time you looked at the wildlife of these games? Did you even know that Hyrule in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom had wildlife? This was the question I asked myself, and upon realizing it, I decided I'm going to spin up Tears of the Kingdom and actually go and observe some wildlife in these games. And upon spinning up Tears of the Kingdom, I realized there is a metric ton of birds in this game. Like, Nintendo went out of their way to recolor and create an enormous amount of birds for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And so, finding this, it sparked another question in me. How many birds in Zelda are actually real birds? Like, I'm talking actual real life birds, or based on them. Ooh, 1 minute. And so today, my wife and I are actually answering that question for all of you. So I set out on an expedition in Tears of the Kingdom to document as many birds as possible, while my wife, she researched all of the Zelda games to find how many birds there actually are and to figure out how many of those birds are actually based on real life. And I'm going to tell you right now, the results are going to be quite shocking. There are many cool birds that are across gaming. Some wield blasters, some you can ride out into battle in your Final Fantasies. But I would say in Zelda's history, this is the most influential bird that there possibly could be. That's right, we are starting off with the most important bird to Zelda's lore, the Loftwing. The Loftwing is a gigantic bird that is given to those who reside on Skyloft. Skyloft is the starting island that you are on in the beginning of Skyward Sword, and the Loftwing is seen as protection from the goddess of Hyrule. Interesting fact here, Link actually gets a crimson Loftwing, and he has the only one that is crimson. Definitely main character energy because boy gets a shiny Pokemon before everyone else. I mean, right out of the gate, I spent literally hours upon hours trying to get a shiny Loftwing, and it did not happen. Of course, I was in the tall grass, but that's beside the point. But this bird is more than just a rideable mount for Link and a means for transportation. It is the reason why Hyrule has this crest right here. Yeah, I'm wagering you've probably seen this before. You know, back in my day, we used to call this the Triforce chicken. You know, like in the 90s. Yeah. And even though the 90s were really weird, it's really cool now that we know that the crest is actually a Loftwing and makes complete sense. But what kind of bird is the Loftwing based on? Where could the developers of Nintendo actually gain inspiration for such a crazily important bird to the lore of Zelda? Well, the Loftwing's beak actually gives it away completely. Clearly, just looking at the Loftwing's bill, we can see that this is a shoe bill. In fact, the Hyrule Historia, the book documenting the history of Hyrule, even says that this Loftwing is based on a shoe bill. And what's really cool about shoe bills? Well, shoe bills are actually sometimes called the dinosaur bird. I mean, look at it. It looks like something that comes from prehistoric times. It's gigantic and almost looks kind of animatronic. I mean, these things are massive, and I could definitely see them flying around with some dinosaurs nearby. Which makes perfect sense for Skyward Sword, because Skyward Sword takes place in a prehistoric time, before the forming of Hyrule, before all the other Zelda games take place. A kind of prehistoric time in Zelda. Now, what's really cool about the shoe bill is if you are in Japan, you can actually go to the zoo and see the shoe bill in real life. And so I believe that the people who developed Skyward Sword, when they were picking out the Loftwing as the bird that Link would ride, I think that they actually went to the zoo there to get details about the bird, because why not see the thing that you're actually going to be putting into the game? But you may have noticed one thing that is clearly different between the Loftwing and the Shoebill. You see, the tail of the Loftwing is actually quite different. If you look, the tail is curved, and Shoebills don't have a curved tail. That's because one of the developers at Nintendo, when they were designing the Loftwing, they were actually looking at their Shiba dog's tail and said, oh, you know what? I would like to add that curvature, the curved tail, to the Loftwing. Pretty dope. But we have to decide here, is this actually a real bird, or is it based on a real bird? Well, I'm gonna have to say the Loftwing is definitely based on a real bird. I mean, it looks almost 100% identical to a Shoebill with the bill, and how it's just so prehistoric. Yes, the first one on our list here is absolutely 100% a real bird. Also, Shoebills are super amazing, and you should go see one in real life if you can. Next up, we have another bird from Skyward Sword, the Hrock. You gotta when you say Hrock, you gotta get right here. When you say Hrock, you gotta get. If your tonsils aren't shaking, you are not saying Hrock right. These enemies reside in Lanayru Desert in Skyward Sword. They actually eat rocks for minerals and nutrition. That's a weird diet. But doubly so, the rocks can be used as ammunition against Link as they put it in their gape sack and launch it back at Link. Gape sack. Yeah. And the rocks are annoyingly good at flying. So what bird did Nintendo possibly draw inspiration from for the rock? Well, this here is the magnificent frigate bird. Awesome name. And if you just have a look at the necks of the real bird and the bird rock in the game, you can clearly see that they both have sacks. Get your mind out of the gutter, okay? But the coolest thing about the magnificent frigate bird is that the bird actually very rarely lands. The magnificent frigate bird, it only lands to breed. I'm sorry, we're talking about sacks and birds that only land to breed. Oh, I can only keep my composure so much. Which tracks for our bird in Skyward Sword, the Hrock, because that bird almost never lands in the game. It likes to stay afloat as much as possible. And so with these factors in mind, we're gonna have to say, yeah, this is a real bird or based on a real bird. I think Nintendo nailed it here with the Hrock. It absolutely just looks almost identical to the magnificent frigate bird, and it's just so cool. One thing to note about the magnificent frigate bird here is that the females have white feathers and the males have the sack. And so when Nintendo designed the Hrock, they actually kind of mixed and matched here, which is pretty cool. I hope you're having a hoot of the time. Did you see what I did there? The next bird up is the owl. The owl is actually in numerous Zelda games. Just off the top of my head, you have Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Link's Awakening. I think he's even in Oracle Seasons and Oracle of Ages. The owl shows up a lot in Zelda games. But we have to talk about the name of the owl that is in Ocarina of Time, because he is a faker. That's right, I'm talking about Gapura Gapura. You probably know who this owl is because he is one of the most frustratingly annoying characters in Ocarina of Time, and also in Link's Awakening, and you can kind of say he's annoying in Majora's Mask too. But see, this bird, Gapura Gapura, has a secret. Why is he frustrating in these games, you might ask? Well, besides showing up at inopportune times that interrupt the story, the dialogue options in Ocarina of Time basically make it to where if you are just clicking a button over and over and over again, you are just going to get the same dialogue repeated from Gapura Gapura over and over again. It is incredibly frustrating. I mean, just to talk to the story aspect, you literally, after you complete the first dungeon in Ocarina of Time, you talk to the Deku Tree, Then you go talk to Saria, and then that owl shows up just before you enter Hyrule Field at the start of your journey. You talk to 3 people before the game starts, and that's not even including Navi or Fairy, who is talking to you constantly. Oh man, there's a reason why people hate this bird. Nintendo loves exposition, I guess. They really want you to know what you need to be doing next. But if you're already frustrated with this owl, you may not want to know about the next part. You see, Gapura here has a deep, dark secret. When the Hyrule Historia released, there was a note about this guy that really threw everyone a curveball. And that is the fact that Gapura is actually Rauru, the Sage of Light. No, not that Rauru. The Rauru from Ocarina of Time. And it's crazy to think that this man is the reason why everyone has so much trouble with Ocarina of Time and moving forward. So when we found that out, it was kind of like, you know, we all were just like, really? The Sage of Light interrupts us constantly and is the reason for the horrible dialogue options? Great. Thanks, Nintendo. But look, we could just say that Gapura is based on the owl. It would be easy to say, owl done. Okay, I'll stop. But my wife and I are researchers and investigators. So the specific owl that we believe that Nintendo drew inspiration from is the Eurasian eagle owl. This guy's a horned owl, which means his feathers stick up and look like horns, very much like Gapura. But cooler than that, the Eurasian eagle owl is the biggest owl in the world, which absolutely tracks because if you see Gapura in Ocarina of Time, that owl is ginormous. I mean, he is so big, he could give the eagles in Lord of the Rings a run for their money. Therefore, we concluded that Gapura and the owl in Zelda is 100% real. Another bird that is found in almost every single Zelda game is the cuckoo, or some people say the cuckoo. You have definitely seen these before. These are basically the chickens of Zelda. But watch out, although peaceful, these guys, if instigated, will eventually swarm Link and become incredibly hostile. And this is actually a trope that has been in Zelda games since A Link to the Past. It is one of the most fun tropes and is currently in Tears of the Kingdom. It has been in every Zelda game since then, if the cuckoo is in the game. And there's really not much to say about these guys. They're obviously chickens. I mean, they have the red comb and the waddle, but the specific chicken that they probably derived the cuckoo from is the white leghorned chicken. So absolutely, 100%, this too is a real bird in Zelda. But don't get comfortable just yet because we actually have 4 more types of cuckoos that we actually need to discuss. Starting with these cute little guys right here. Yeah, were you aware there were actually cuckoo chicks in The Legend of Zelda? I've seen these guys in about 2 games, one of them being in Majora's Mask, where you have to play the flute with the marching mask. I can't remember the name of it. And then they turn into cuckoos. But these cute little guys are also in The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, which is really cool because when you're in Minish form, they will treat you as though you are some sort of bug or worm, and they will attack Link sometimes and actually try to eat him, which is a really nice touch by Nintendo. Next up, we almost didn't give this guy his own little section, but we decided to anyway because we're researchers and investigators and we wanted to be as in-depth as absolutely possible in this video. So we are talking about the cuckoo leader. Now, the name would suggest that this is the leader of cuckoos. That is not actually at all true. This is a cuckoo that is in Twilight Princess and is the leader of 20 cats. Yeah, cats. The cuckoo leader is a part of a mini game in Twilight Princess, where if you talk to him as a wolf, you then have to go and find 20 cats, and then if you do that, he will give you a heart piece. It's just that cats are natural enemies to birds, and so a cuckoo being a leader of cats is a little bit bonkers, but you're gonna see that Nintendo does some crazier things than that in this video. So yes, Kuko Leader, just like the regular Kuko and the Kuko Chicks, is absolutely a real bird. Sticking with the Kukos, we are going with one that is quite shiny. Yes, we were talking about the golden Kuko. This guy only shows up in 2 Zelda games. He shows up in Twilight Princess and in the Minish Cap. And what's interesting about golden Kukos is they are more difficult to catch than normal Kukos. Besides being, I don't know, partially metallic and golden. But in Twilight Princess, if you were to catch a golden Kuko, the golden Kuko allows you to basically glide like a normal Kuko in the other Zelda games. So I'm not sure why Nintendo thought that one needed to be different than the other Zelda games, but in Twilight Princess, you need a golden Kuko in order to jump off something and glide. So my wife and I, when we were doing research, the closest bird that we could possibly find to a golden Kuko was the fluffy buff cochin. What a silly name to say, dude. Fluffy buff cochin. What? We chose this guy basically off of his color, matching the golden Kuko quite well. But unlike golden Kukos in Twilight Princess and the Minish Cap, which are very hard to catch, the fluffy buff cochin is notoriously easy to catch. And they are also quite gentle to actually care for. And so even though we mapped a bird to this one, we're going to have to say that the golden Kuko is absolutely not real. I mean, unless you guys have seen a shiny chicken running around, we're not going to say this one's real. Speaking of things being notorious, we have up next in the Kuko category, Kojiro. Yes, a lot of you probably forgot about this bird because this bird is a blue Kuko that is a part of a trading quest in Ocarina of Time. And you want to do this quest because this is how you get the Bigoron Greatsword, which is a 2-handed sword that Link can wield. And, well, he's blue. That's what he's got going for him, is he's a blue chicken. So the closest real-life equivalent we could find to this chicken was the blue Astrolord. And looking at this one, you can kind of see that it does kind of match. The blue Astrolord, although with blue in its name, is more of a grayish looking chicken. And so we have to say that this also is not a real bird. Whew, we're done with chickens. Hopefully my wife chose a really cool bird next. What the hell is that? Oh, it's the Uka. This here is known as a Uka, and it is thought to be based off the Kuko because it is similar in both size and in name. But yeah, that's where the similarities end with this guy. I'm just gonna ask all of you a question. Have you ever seen a bird with boobs? No? How about a row of boobs? Have you ever seen a bird with a row of boobs? Well, that is good because that would mean it's not a bird. Birds do not have mammary glands. They don't have breasts. They do not produce the milk, which means birds are not mammals. I mean, this is just some basic biology 101 stuff you learn literally in middle school. But Nintendo here thought, hey, let's make this monstrosity, and because it has boobs, it makes it a mammal. So no, this might give you nightmares, but it is sure as heck not a bird. I wonder what Nintendo was thinking with this guy. On to one of my favorite races in Zelda, the Rito. Now, the Rito show up in 2 games primarily, and they're different in both games. They show up in Wind Waker as kind of this human with a duck bill. Look, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not a big fan of Wind Waker. I don't like the designs of Wind Waker too much. And this design for Rito is, I'm just going to be real, I think it's lazy. They just took a human and put a duck bill on them. And that's fine. Hey, and I think they were going for something different there. But the Ritos in actual Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom look amazing. They have so many colors and variations, and they just look so darn cool. And That's actually kind of the downfall, because it was really hard for us to nail down what bird that Nintendo took inspiration here, because they kind of took inspiration from multiple birds when they made the Rito. I mean, you have some that look like owls, you have some that look like hawks, and so the best we could come with is maybe some sort of hawk or a falcon, and that's the best we could do. I love you, Ritos, but unfortunately, you're not a bird. Fun fact, did you know that the second Zelda game was actually a side-scroller? It was titled The Adventure of Link, and is actually considered one of the hardest Zelda games, if not the hardest. I mean, I actually recently beat a remake of this game on the PC, which was very fun, but man, was it hard. But not only is it known for being hard, it's known for being incredibly weird as well. And it has possibly one of the weirdest bosses in all of Zelda. I'm talking about the boss, the Thunderbird. This bird is actually based off of a mythological creature in Native American culture called the Thunderbird. And the Thunderbird was absolutely this massive bird that every time its wings would flap, it would create the sound of thunder. But here's the thing. The Thunderbird is a mythological creature, so that would mean in this video. But even weirder is the depictions of the Thunderbird. Now, in Native American culture, they actually have depictions of the Thunderbird as kind of a hybrid between human and bird. Some of them have a Native American face and headdress and then the bird. Some of them are full bird. And in the 8-bit version of Link's Adventure, the Thunderbird is in fact a Native American with a headdress on with the body of a bird. It is very, very interesting to look at, but I mean, it is a little bit horrifying and weird to look at. Furthermore, this boss can actually only be killed by using the spell Thunder, which, I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? Thunderbird, you're going to use thunder to take it down. I don't know what Zelda was trying to go for back then, but I guess kind of gives it away, right? And even weirder than all of this, the King of Hyrule created the Thunderbird. Yeah, you heard that right. The King of Hyrule created the Thunderbird. Weird. Have you ever seen a bokoblin fly? What about a moblin? Have you ever seen a moblin fly? Well, probably not in a recent Zelda game, but in The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, you had something called a Kagurok. And a Kagurok actually would pick up moblins and bokoblins and fly them around. The Kagurok also has a boss equivalent in the game, which most of you who have played Wind Waker are going to immediately recognize as the Helmrock King. And now the Helmrock King is kind of mean because he actually kidnapped Link's sister. So you have a big incentive in the game to actually go beat up this bird. And the most interesting thing about the Helmrock King is that the Helmrock King works for Ganon. But actually, when you're fighting the Helmrock King, when you break its mask off, it is just a Kagurok. But this bird is based off of a creature known as the Rock. It's a mythological creature in Asian cultures, which, similar to the Thunderbird, is just this massive, gigantic bird. And it would fly around, and it would actually be so big that it would pick up elephants as well as sailing ships. Not kidding you, that is a gigantic bird. But unfortunately, again, mythological creature. We also know that rocks are within the Legend of Zelda universe because there is an item in the Legend of Zelda called the Rock's Feather. And the Rock's Feather is something that Link uses in multiple Zelda games to be able to jump. So pretty cool. Nice to know that the rock is in the game, and yeah, pretty cool, but unfortunately, not a real bird. The Phoenix is a bird that resides in Skyward Sword and is based off of the mythological creature, the Phoenix. Now, I don't really need to explain what a Phoenix is because I'm sure many of you know, but just to give you a quick rundown, the Phoenix is a fire bird, sometimes it's depicted as, And it's this bird that when it dies, it bursts into flame, becomes ashes, and then it rises from those ashes alive again as a new bird known as the Phoenix. And Dumbledore had one in Harry Potter, and that's really all you need to know about the Phoenix. But the Phoenix in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword will actually furl up its tail and shoot fireballs at Link, which is not cool at all. Get it? It shoots fireballs, therefore it's hot. It's not cool. I was actually surprised in the research to find out that there was a Phoenix-like character in Zelda. I did not know that Zelda actually had a Phoenix in it. So it was really cool to find that out. Unfortunately, though, not a bird. And next up is, oh boy, this is gonna get me in trouble. Okay, this may sound like I'm cussing YouTube, but I just want to tell you right now, I'm not. This is the name of the bird, okay? I am not cussing, but our next bird up is the fuckaroo. The fuckaroo are large birds in Link's adventure, in the adventure of Link. They are placed in palaces or dungeons of the game by the King of Hyrule in order to protect the Triforce of Courage. And they have boobs. Yeah, they have freaking boobs. Okay, I'm not fuckarooing around and finding out about this one, all right? We discussed already, birds do not have mammary glands. They are not mammals. They are birds. They cannot have boobs. They do not produce the milk. Come on, Nintendo. What are you thinking, man? This is basic biology. The crest on the head of these birds actually resemble more of a harpy eagle, which is very, very cool. Harpy eagles are massive and stunningly beautiful birds. Now, I've actually seen a harpy eagle in real life. Fortunately, I saw it in the Belize Zoo in Central America. It was so cool to be able to see one of these birds. But look, the fuckaroo, whatever they're called, do not come anywhere close to harpy eagles. So we're saying the fuckaroo is not real. And hopefully that's the last time I have to say that word because I don't want Nintendo to hate this video. Up next, we're talking about a very annoying enemy in The Adventure of Link. Let me ask all of you this. How would you feel if you were playing a game and an enemy stole experience from you? You know, like experience points. The things you use to level up? Well, the Moby in The Adventure of Link does that. It will fly down, dive bomb you, and steal your experience, making it one of the most annoying enemies in the Legend of Zelda series. And trust me, just having recently beaten that game, you have to level up. I mean, just to be able to use the Thunder spell for the end of the game, you need to have a certain level in order to use that spell. So what bird is the Moby based on? Well, it's likely based on the Black Falcon, this really cool raptor right here. The Black Falcon also hunts by dive bombing its targets, and its feathers are mostly dark brown or near black. So yeah, we're saying yes, the Moby is definitely based on a real bird. It looks very similar to the Black Falcon. Speaking of falcons, how many of you know what falconry is? Well, if you don't, that's fine, because I'll explain it to you. Falconry is the sport of hunting by using birds of prey, which is really darn cool. It takes years to become a master falconer. And during that time, you actually assist in raising the birds themselves, which is really neat. And you know, my wife, we do a lot of research for stuff, but we've actually met a lot of falconers in our time. And each one that we've met, they really treat their birds as if they were their children, which is really, really cool. It's always really interesting to hear how people become falconers and why they chose that line of work. And it's just so cool. I highly recommend going and looking up falconer as a career path. Don't necessarily mean to go do it because there's not much in it as far as money, but it's a very cool job. And so I have to explain this because in Twilight Princess, you actually are doing falconry. You use a hawk In order to attack enemies, both Link and villagers can summon a hawk in Twilight Princess in order to attack enemies. Which means in Twilight Princess, they're using falconry. And the Twilight Princess hawk looks so similar here to a Harris hawk, which the Harris hawk is very commonly used in falconry. And fun fact about the hawk here in the Twilight Princess, it has yellow eyes, which means it's a juvenile. And we know this because when hawks age, like the Harris hawk, their eyes will actually change color. I mean, how cool is that? Their eyes actually change color with their age. So 100% the Twilight Princess hawk is a real bird. Another hawk found in Zelda is the Islander hawk. The Islander hawk is found in both Hyrule Field in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. However, unlike the previous hawk, this one has a different tail shape, indicating that this is part of the Buteo family of hawks. Buteo hawks have larger bodies and broader tails, which makes them a little bit slower than other hawks. And out of all the Buteo hawks that there are, we believe that the Islander hawk looks most like the broad-winged hawk. And I mean, just looking at these two, you can definitely tell that they are basically the same hawk. You can see the wingtips here, which are also called the primary feathers. And these primary feathers mean that the Islander hawk is actually a broad-winged hawk. Hawks are super cool and pretty common in Zelda. But another bird that is very common in The Legend of Zelda is the crow. Specifically, we're talking about the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom crow. These guys can be found in the Hyrule Forest of the game, and well, they're crows. But what's really cool is that Nintendo went a step further than just making crows. You see, the crows in Zelda actually take rupees and steal things from you sometimes. And in real life, crows will actually go and pick up shinies and make nests out of the shinies. It's a very cool nod to the actual real crow that Nintendo did, and this for one is an American crow. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite birds ever. These guys right here. I love these dudes in this game. They're so cute. I love the bright colors. I love how they float. They're just so darn cute. And I think many of you probably didn't even know that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild had ducks. Specifically, Nintendo named these the bright-chested duck, which is so cool that Nintendo actually in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom went a step further when they were naming their birds. They actually named them as if they were real birds, like bright-chested or red-chested or black-naped. They actually named birds like they are called similarly in real life, which is really cool. But I love playing in Hyrule and seeing these guys float around. They're basically wood ducks. The wood duck and the bright-chested duck in Zelda both do a couple things that are very similar to each other. Both ducks love to be in water and rivers, which is similar habitats to one another, and both of them have similar colors to one another. And both ducks are actually dabbling ducks, which a dabbling duck is simply a duck that dips itself down into the water and puts its butt up in the air in order to get food. How many of you have seen ducks put their face down into the water, rear end up? They're trying to get food in the water. They do this in shallow waters, typically digging in order to get food. It's very, very cool. And just so freaking cute. Nintendo, you absolutely nailed this one. Moving on to the Fair Grasslands, we have the blue-winged heron. And I have to say, credit where credit's due, Nintendo nailed it on this one. This is actually a 100% identical bird. This bird looks exactly like the great blue heron in our world. I mean, look at these guys and try to tell me they are not the same bird. They absolutely are. Hats off to you, Nintendo. Found again in the Hyrule Field, we have the pink-winged heron. Yeah, so this is the same bird as the one before, but it's pink. But surprisingly here, we actually discovered a different bird to match with this one. This bird actually matches the cattle egret bird The cattle egret actually matches this bird better because it's pink and it has the brown tips on its feathers. And next up we have, well, at least it doesn't have boobs. And I'm gonna need my glasses for this one. Is that fur? Next up we have the Elden ostrich. The Elden ostrich is a bird within the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom games. And it's a bird that has, I'm not joking, fur. I mean, it looks kind of like an emu with a lion's mane. It is such a weird looking bird. But hey, it's an Elden ostrich, right? I guess it's based off an ostrich. Yeah, this is not a bird at all. It doesn't look like a bird. Comparing this, I mean, look what an ostrich looks like in our world compared to this guy. I'm sorry, this bird is just absolutely silly. When you hear the name forest ostrich, you may be thinking the deep woods, maybe, or any type of woods for that matter. Maybe even the lost woods of Hyrule. But no, the forest ostrich lives in the Sky Islands in Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. There's an ostrich up in the sky. I mean, at least there's some kind of like trees up there sometimes, right? Maybe not forests, but yeah. And then just like the last bird, they decided to give them fur, which is so weird. Okay. Maybe I need to say this again, but birds do not have fur. They have feathers. It's just so weird, Nintendo. Yeah, not a real bird. I really love the name of this next bird. It's just so cool. We're talking about the hot feathered pigeon. I mean, this name is so cool. Hot feathered pigeon, it just sounds like something that is in our world. It is such a cool name. The hot feathered pigeon is a pigeon found in Elden Canyon or the Elden Mountains. This one in our research was a bit harder to track down a real world equivalent, but we decided to go with the Western bronze naped pigeon because it matches the color pretty well and it has the red breast too. And I'm gonna be real with you guys, this one when we were doing the research, it skirted the line for us. We almost decided that it was not a real bird, but ultimately, my wife and I kind of looked at it and said, yeah, it's pretty good. So we're going to say this one is, in fact, based on a real life bird. I mean, at least it didn't have fur or boobs. Okay, this one is actually insane. Of all the birds, this one's probably one of my favorite to actually research. We're talking about the rainbow pigeon. The rainbow pigeon can be found in Hyrule Forest or on Hyrule Ridge. It absolutely looks insane with its coloring. And here's the thing. You may be thinking that this is not a real bird, that there is no way that this possibly could be a bird that is real or based on one in real life. Well, get ready to have your mind blown because this is in fact based on a real bird. This rainbow pigeon is actually based on the pink-necked green pigeon, which looks so identical to the rainbow pigeon in the game. I could not believe this when my wife gave me the research and showed me that literally the rainbow bird was a real bird in our world. In fact, she actually gave me a little bit more here too. She said that there are actually many doves and pigeons with beautiful colors. And if you're ever interested, you should check out the fruit dove. And it's absolutely super fun to check out all the different color birds. So if you want to actually see some more cool birds like the rainbow pigeon here, I absolutely recommend that you go check out, like my wife said, the fruit dove. I'm so blown away by the fact that the rainbow pigeon is real, that it's the pink-necked green pigeon. Amazing. Going from the most interesting bird to the possibly most uninteresting bird, we have the white pigeon. But I actually do like talking about this bird because it has this red around its eye, which makes it quite unique. And like the previous bird, you may be thinking that this is not a real bird, but actually it lines up almost too well with the Pinion's imperial pigeon. Yeah, very cool. I mean, just look at the eyes. Next up, we have the wood pigeon. Now, the wood pigeon can be found in Hyrule Ridge, and although it looks really cool, it was exceptionally hard for us to find any real-life equivalent. The closest thing we could find was the Jambu fruit dove, and it was only close in its colors, which were mismatched. Yeah, unfortunately, the wood pigeon is not a real bird. And the last of the pigeons you can find in the East, Garuda Sky Archipelago, named by Nintendo as the accented pigeon. This cute guy was actually pretty hard to find a real-life equivalent for as well. But after some research, we settled on the white-throated ground dove, which sure, maybe not like a pigeon, but these guys look incredibly similar here. Again, we're looking for the realistic equivalent, not necessarily a breeding match to one that's in real life. So with that, we said that this is actually a real bird. Okay, there are a metric ton of sparrows in Zelda, like a lot. And so we're jumping in with our first sparrow, the red sparrow. This dude can be found in Tabanthia Frontier. And although coined as a sparrow in the game, it looks mostly like a common rosefinch, which is actually really cute. These guys are super cool to look at. I mean, they have such beautiful colors. Next up, we have the sand sparrow, which you may guess is actually in Garuda Desert. But again, even though called a sparrow, we decided this guy looked more like a rose-throated tanager. I mean, the red on the head here matches incredibly well, and so does the body. Next up, we have the blue sparrow that can be found in Hyrule Forest. It has a crest like cardinals, but the bird that matches this one is actually just related to the cardinal, the Lazuli bunting. Now here we were very close to saying no, but we were okay with the colors here of the nape and the breast being flipped. Clearly Nintendo drew inspiration from the Lazuli bunting, so we were going to say that this one is based on a real bird. If you were to look in Hyrule Ridge, you may spot this guy. This is the common sparrow in Zelda, and yeah, he's common, but the ladies love him for it. And we think this dude is definitely based on the yellow-breasted chat. The back may not be green, but the white and yellow patches match up almost perfectly. And it has a white ring around its eye, which is a major identifier for those bird watching or birding in the real world. Finally, we have the last of the sparrows, the golden sparrow, who is beautiful with his yellow head and earth-toned wings. This one, although incredibly cool, we surprisingly could not find a real-life match for this bird. The closest was the female western tanager here, but there's just so much yellow. It kind of sucks because this is like the only sparrow that did not have a real-life equivalent. Another incredibly common bird in Zelda is the seagull. In Wind Waker, you get to control one of these guys and actually fly him around and even obtain a heart piece when you do. And I always loved in that game when you're like sailing around, and if you do for a long period of time, the seagulls actually like fly with your ship, which is super cool. This is probably like the easiest bird on the whole list. Oh, look, my wife left me a researcher note here. I hate that you put this on the list. It's a freaking gull. They all look the same. These graphics freaking suck. These graphics suck. I can't see anything. Seagulls suck. Gulls suck. You suck. That last bit was underlined. I guess I should have given her a more interesting bird to study. Speaking of interesting birds to study, next up we have the cloud seagull. Yeah, guess where it resides. This guy can be found in the Sky Archipelago as well, and it is way cooler than the normal seagull. What's interesting about him is that he actually has a forked tail, which seagulls do not have forked tails, but it is like a tern, specifically the black-naped tern. My wife actually left me a note on this one as well, and it says, Terns are like seagulls or gulls, but most have black heads. Therefore, the black nape matched this one almost perfectly with the tail and the white head. Thanks, this makes up for the lame seagulls. Well, there you have it. The cloud seagull is in fact real. Next up, we have the Takuri. These terrifying dudes are within Majora's Mask, and they will steal your items and then sell them to the curiosity shop owner. Yeah, not cool. But given that that is not Hyrule, we decided to focus on more Hyrule-centric birds. So within the Minish Cap, the Takuri also is located. And they're actually just crows, recolored. The closest bird we can actually find to this dude was the Andaman Treepy. What a name. But even with the red here, it just doesn't really match up well with the in-game version. Therefore, for this one, we're going to say it is not a real bird. A bird that is in several games: Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, Skyward Sword, is the Gwei. And these are essentially crows, but way more aggressive towards Link. In fact, they will actually follow Link very far, attacking him. Jeez, and here I thought the bats of Zelda were annoying. These guys will literally hone in and try to attack you. But here's the really cool thing. These birds recognize Link. They pursue him for super long distances, which suggests that this bird is very much like a raven in our world. You see, ravens are incredibly smart. So much so that when researchers study ravens, they have to wear masks in order to hide their face because ravens will recognize them. And why is that important? Well, because the raven may hold some grudges to the people that are researching it. And so for those facts alone, the Gwei is a raven. It is most like a raven. Next up, we have another very common bird in The Legend of Zelda. We have the vulture. Specifically, when I think of this bird, I think to A Link to the Past, but it's also in Four Sword Adventures. But these birds are not really a threat to Link if he stands still, but once he moves, the birds do try to attack him. And given that these have purple heads, they actually match up really well with the turkey vulture. Vultures are actually incredibly cool birds. I mean, did you know that vultures actually eat bones and can digest them? It's pretty freaking cool. Anyway, yeah, real life bird. Next up, we're gonna have one that is a bird that's gonna make old schoolers like me jump out of my chair. I'm talking about the flute boy's bird. The flute boy's bird shows up in The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This is a bird that you can summon with the ocarina, and it will fly down and transport you to locations on the map. It is an incredible system to have this bird because you can actually move around the map a lot quicker, which back in the day was a big deal. However, with a bill like that, it is most like a duck. And in researching, we really couldn't find any all-natural white ducks. But the American pecan is what closely relates to this bird. And it super makes sense because the American pecan is a domesticated duck. In fact, it's the most domesticated duck, which makes sense. If the flute boy trained the bird, then it's domesticated. So this one actually makes a lot of sense. I have a question for all of you guys. What do you get when you cross a penguin and an alligator? Well, you get this monstrosity right here. It's called a pingator. This is a reoccurring enemy in a lot of Zelda games. But honestly, it looks more like a platypus than a penguin and alligator. Yeah, it's not in any way real, but it's an interesting enemy. Sticking to the same game, we have the storytelling bird. This bird you can pay 20 rupees to in the cave south of the Dark Palace in A Link to the Past. And for that 20 rupees, it will tell you a story. This bird basically matches the yellow-faced parrot, except, well, it doesn't talk and tell you a story. Next up, similar to the flute boy's bird, we have Zephyr. Zephyr is a bird that assists you in the Minish Cap. If Link in that game plays the Ocarina of Wind, it will summon Zephyr, which then the bird will move Link to any wind crest you choose. It's Its name comes from Zephyr, which means gentle breeze in the dictionary. And what's really cool is this bird looks almost identical to the blue Quaker parrot, who is super cute and handsome and makes this bird real. Next up, we have Eslo. Yes, I know you all have been waiting for this because I've been talking about the Minish Cap a lot, and you're probably wondering, is the Minish Cap Eslo the hat that you wear? Is he a bird? And if he is, what is he based on? Well, we can clearly see that this bird does have a beak and it has a crest of some kind. But yeah, I mean, there is no bird that is like Eslo here. We couldn't find anything. But I do have some questions, like if you wear Eslo and Eslo's a bird and he poops like a bird, where does that poop go? Returning to our beloved game Skyward Sword, we have the Cheery. These birds you can catch with the bug net, and they give Link feathers for crafting. They come in 3 colors. They come in red, yellow, and blue. But color-wise, this bird actually matches pretty closely with the red-cheeked cordon bleu. And man, these dudes are just so adorable. There's a lot of birds on this list that are cute, but this one is just really cute. So yeah, we're gonna say this one is real. Next up, we're talking about Purdy. Besides me telling this to my wife when she is looking super fine, Purdy is Henna's pet cockatiel in Twilight Princess. When you talk to this bird in Twilight Princess in wolf form, she is actually super rude about Henna, calling her like super old and telling Link to like go away. Super rude, dude. Purdy though here clearly looks like a cockatiel. It's not even close. That's exactly what she is. Specifically the gray cockatiel. Very cool. Next up, we have a really interesting one. In Twilight Princess, there is a character named Koro, and Koro has this, well, gigantic afro. And actually, he has 2 birds in his afro. He has 1 blue and 1 yellow. And interestingly enough, this game, those birds look very similar to the birds that we've already discussed, the sparrows. They match the Uzuli bunting and the yellow-chested chat perfectly. Now, another bird that Koro is keeping is Trill. Trill runs his shop near the Forest Temple, and this guy will remember if you overpay him or underpay him in the game. It's also interesting because he will help you fight enemies that are nearby his shop. And based on this beak, we think maybe like a toucan or something. But, well, I don't know. Something about this bird just really stands out. What could it be? Oh, could it be the gigantic afro? Yeah, the closest bird to any sort of afro is the brown-cheeked hornbill. So yeah, not a real bird. Sorry, Trill. And our final bird is within Twilight Princess, and her name is Plum. She is friends with Link, but only will speak to him if he is in wolf form. If you do talk to her, it will start a mini game called Fruit Pot Flight. Now, we noticed that the wiki said Plum is a myna-like bird. And well, my wife, who is a doctor of ornithology, a well-published doctor of ornithology, left me this note. The wiki claims that the plum bird is a myna-like bird, and that is absolute balderdash. The wiki could not be more wrong if it tried. This here is a picture of a myna bird. Please do explain how Plum, who has a bill like a toucan, looks anything like a myna bird. I am honestly disturbed and quite abhorred by such a misclassification by the wiki. Plum, with her toucan-like bill, is actually closer to a cockatoo, specifically the Major Mitchell cockatoo, but is also crossed with a toucan. Therefore, this bird is not real, and the editor of this wiki should think critically of his career path. Well, dang, she has a point there. Don't trust anything you find in the wiki, my friends. As for the bird Plum, sorry folks, Plum is not a real bird. So how many birds in Hyrule did we actually find were realistic? So not including the places outside of Hyrule, we found that 58% of the birds in the Legend of Zelda series were in fact real. This is absolutely astonishing. The list of games included in this research was The Legend of Zelda, The Adventure of Link, A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Four Swords Adventure, The Wind Waker, Four Swords, The Minish Cap, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, A Link Between Worlds, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. I have to thank Mama Goron specifically for all the amazing research. She spent literally weeks researching different birds for this video. And like I said, she actually is a doctor, a well-published doctor of ornithology, and is actually capable of Cinderellaing birds from the sky. And no, I'm actually not kidding about that. She has caught birds before and she knows how to handle birds. So it's really cool. So if you liked any of this research that she did, please like this video. You're letting her know that her hard work paid off and that you enjoyed the work that she put into this video. I mean, she literally spent weeks matching every bird with a real life equivalent. It's a lot of work, guys. And put down below, what was the bird that surprised you the most? I'm really curious what you guys say, because mine was obviously the rainbow pigeon. The rainbow pigeon actually, like, being a real bird, just, it blew my mind. I did not think birds could have that much color. Anyway, guys, I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you for checking out our research here and seeing our findings that we reported out to you all. Have a beautiful day wherever you're at, and maybe check out some birds in your area as well. My name is Papa Goron. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.